Patrick is very feisty. Aren't you, Patrick? Time to change your water, Patrick. You gonna be a good boy today? Just never. Never, Mom. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Rose Cottage Acres. I thought I'd give a little tour of all of our progress that we've had going on here. It's getting there. It's coming into shape. It never seems like it's going to the first day of spring, and then suddenly you start making that headway. What I did was I installed solar night lights for the chicks because they're spoiled. They've been working really well. The little panels sit here and charge through the day. And then in the evening I just turn on the little lights and they have night lights. So they like to sleep under them. They're just spoiled. It's okay because they're adorable. I really love their setup. They wait at the doorway and come running out first thing in the morning. And I have food water in and out now. So far I've got 4 roosters in here still, and everyone's getting along, but I may have to separate them eventually. But so far everyone's doing good. The 2 sea roosters and the 3 hens, and then my little cushions. You're being loud. Remington Steel. Haven't named this guy yet. Mommy, you're being loud. He's pretty. Well, a tan boy back there that's handsome. Let's see. Age, placed, I think. I didn't actually set out to get the beige sea brights, but they have such great personalities that I'm really glad I have them. Oh, dude. I thought we agreed you weren't going to pop out like that. But this guy needs a name, so I think I'm going to have to take suggestions. He's a beauty. And he comes with an absolutely beautiful little hen, too. So I'd like to have them have names that kind of match. The sea braids are a lot of fun. I wasn't sure I'd like them, but the buff ones especially have really great personalities. The silver ones aren't crazy or anything. They're just not quite so... Like the buff hens will come hop on you and perch on your shoulder. And the silver ones are a little bit more standoffish, but they're very nice birds. And I've really been enjoying having them. I wasn't sure. I knew I loved cushions. Hi, baby. How's my girl? That's Lucy. Lucy is... Amelia. Don't peck Lucy. Lucy is the most awesome chicken. What's everyone doing out here? Go back inside. And that's Tiny in the middle. She's came to me with bad feet and very small. But we managed to pull her through. And she's also got a wonderful disposition. You guys are just such cuties. The white hen also needs a name. I've got 2. I've got the Smooth and a Frizzle. So we're working on that. Everybody hop back in now. The duckies have turned into a fine little flock. I'm going to show you my newest additions. These are the smallest chicken breed. They're called Saramas. And I was lucky enough someone couldn't keep them, so I was able to get them. I've got a rooster and 4 little hens. They're still young. And I have, I think, what's called C-class, so the largest ones. They actually can come in A, B, and C class, and then they can have micro. And the micro usually don't live as long, and the A class a lot of times don't lay eggs, so I think B and C class would be my preference anyway. They're very cute. Notice the almost spotless duck pond. Every time I change the water, they pretend that it has been possessed by aliens and they won't go near it for like a week. So starting with our first bed, I've been picking fava beans to cook with pasta as green beans. I did several dishes, a couple pounds of it, and now I'm just letting the remaining beans turn into shell beans. Fava beans are delicious. They're very creamy and mild, so we're going to let all the rest of these develop into beans instead of picking them as green beans. I did have to harvest all my garlic scapes. This garlic still has not been outstanding over here, so I'm not sure how big my bulbs will be, but since I had to do the garlic scapes, that means they will be ready to harvest about July 1st. Right, over here, this was supposed to be bitter melon, but Baker Creek had a clearance sale, and now it's passion fruit vine. And this little guy, the other one died. I did get a refund for it because they came half dead. But I think he's going to pull through. This is a very nice little guava. I do have to take up that willow. He died. Most of the willows did okay. These came to me as sticks and I just shoved them in the ground. And then that is my longevity spinach. And I'm waiting a little bit for him to get a little bit more growth on him. It has so many beneficial properties from what I understand. I'm very excited, and I'm supposed to eat 4 leaves a day, so hopefully he grows on and gets nice and big and fills out that whole thing. My brother has longevity spinach taken up for the side of his house, but he lives in a slightly different zone than I do. Right over here, the carrots are filling in really nice, and the beets and the reseeded beets. This guy, the artichoke, is doing okay. Now here, as I mentioned in one of my previous videos, these 2 guys are going to have to come out. They went to seed. But that is my perennial cutting, and he has rooted and is doing really well. He did have some cabbage worms on him. My artificial moths all blew away, so I have to make new ones because I think they were working, but you can see snacks for chickens. Now I can use organic pesticides on these that targets the worms. It's called BT, and it's supposed to be okay, but I try not to use anything, so I'll probably just pick the worms as they come and feed them to the chickens who love them. This cow hasn't been hit yet. Turnips, I'm about to make a big pot of turnip greens. So turnips are cool because you can get a double crop. You can cut half your turnip leaves, make turnip greens. The turnips will keep growing. And you can usually even do it a second time and still have decent sized turnips, but I usually only do it the once. So into your sunflower. Spinach that has not bolted yet. Yay! Now this was my sporadic beets, so I've gone through and I've put in more beets, and then I put in rutabagas. I don't know why I keep growing rutabagas, and then a couple cabbage, and I've got 2 eggplants as well, doing well. Here is my little tomato row. I don't have a ton of tomatoes this year. I think I've only got like 12 total. Usually I plant a lot more. I might have to put a couple more in, I'm not sure. But I'm not that stressed because I always get these obnoxious cherry tomato volunteers that give us more tomatoes than we can possibly eat. And basil, that is from my arrow garden, and then it got really big in the arrow garden and the roots were taking up the whole thing, so I put the arrow garden away for the summer, but I put the basil outside. I planted it with a little plastic pot and all, so I didn't destroy the roots. Fingers crossed, it looks like we might have a crop of young berries this year. I mentioned in the previous video that I was going to be growing in some of my mostly finished compost piles this year. And there are my 2 little squash seedlings. And there are my 2 little melon seedlings. I'm also trying to sprout avocados directly in the pile as it gets hotter. And the potatoes all are volunteers, as are the sunflowers. I am wondering if I made a mistake though, because this pile is almost full and it's heating up. So I may need to actually gently transplant my 2-inch squash, move that compost somewhere else, and have another bin to break down. And then, like, even my rough compost bin has gotten pretty much out of control here. This I just leave to sit for a couple years. Alright, okra babies. Doing okay so far. No one has come along and lopped their little heads off, so I'm hoping for the best. A couple of the seeds haven't come up completely, but most of them have come up. Beans, I actually put a little bit of diatomaceous earth on them the other day because they seem to be having too many slugs, and it is too soon to let the ducks over. They'll just tear everything apart because it's too young. So the ducks cannot patrol here yet. Potatoes, leeks, and onions. And then, of course, more berries and my peas here on the end. Over here, I just transplanted celeriac because that purple bok choy ended up having 1 plant. Regular bok choy, lettuce, and again I dusted with diatomaceous earth on my Chinese cabbage because it was getting hit pretty hard. Got more kale, volunteer calendula, more peas, and my good garlic stand. And then my perennial onion and garlic bed. In the hoop, got some good progress. I have new parsley because my old parsley is going to seed. Beans, I just reseeded the climbing beans because some of them have had too much pressure from the pest, but I've got, especially this row, I don't know why, but this row is doing better. And here I have a lot of kale, a little cabbage, and my new chard. This is, I just put in seeds for red Russian kale, so I'm waiting for them to come up too. I've got scarlet kale, and then, like I said, the cabbages. I like kale, I guess. I plant a lot of it. Little Cherokee tomato, and my corn. My corn's doing really well. And then my dahlia rose doing pretty good too. And then sweet potatoes. Alright, so that's about it. I hope you enjoyed the tour of the garden today. It is the last week of May. We're coming into June and things are really starting to take off.